Yeah, should be good to go whenever you're ready.
Aren't they? Today we're going to look at planting spring flowering bulbs, and we're going to use a method called Lasagne planting, which basically just means different layers of bulbs one on top of the other. And what that means is you can prolong your flowering period for your tub or your pot, and also if you've got limited space you can get a better display. So the first thing we do is obviously you choose your planter. We've got this nice wooden planter that's made out of recycled pallets. I've lined it with plastic, and in the bottom what you need to do is to make sure that there's drainage holes, but also that there's a form of drainage itself with either crock or, as I'm using here, polystyrene. Now I'm using polystyrene because it's quite a heavy planter, so if you put in heavy crock in as well, what you'll find is it's really heavy, which is a good thing because it makes it stable, but if at any point you need to move it, you might struggle. So what I've done is chopped up some old polystyrene and placed it in the bottom. I've put probably a 3-inch layer in the bottom of there, each on top of one another, and that also allows it to drain as well. And it's a good way of recycling the polystyrene because it's one of the worst things to try and recycle. Yeah. So we're going to use 3 different types of bulbs. We've got one here called Tulip Sunlover. That's going to go in the deepest. It's going to go down about 6 inches deep. We've got the next one, which is a daffodil called Jetfire, and that's going to go in about 4 inches deep. And then the third layer is an allium called Molly, which is going to go in 2 inches deep. And then on the top we're also going to put in some nice little pansies, just to give you some colour through the winter till the bulbs come up. We are planting the tulips slightly early. Normally I'd like to plant the tulips round about the end of October, beginning of November, and that helps to prevent a disease called tulip fire. But for the purposes of the video, we're going to plant them today. The other thing to remember is that some of the bulbs you might, as an individual, get an allergic reaction to, so just check the packaging, and if you know you've got an allergic reaction to them, just wear gloves. I know I'm fine, I've handled them before. The other thing to look for as well, if you've got any damaged bulbs, now I've been through the pack of the tulips, and I've got one here that's got a little bit of a scuff on it. It's still solid, so there's no disease in there, so you can still be able to use that. If you notice any mould or it's soft to the touch, then discard it, don't use it, because it just won't work anyway. The next thing we're going to do is pop in a base layer of compost, and as we said, we're going to plant the tulips 6 inches deep, so we want this to be sort of maybe 7-8 inches from the surface of the pot, so that we know the tulips are going to go in deep enough. So that's just about perfect now. So this is new compost, but what I've added to it is compost probiotic, and that just gives it a bit of extra life to feed the bulbs and to feed what I'm going to put on the top, the pansies, so that'll help it through the winter months. The next thing I'm going to do is now start to plant the tulips. So with the tulip, you can see you've got your root crown there, and at the pointy end you can see the little shoot beginning there, so you know that it's got to go in that way up. So I'm just going to space those in, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to put an odd number in. Now it might seem strange when you're going to put different layers in, but things just seem to look better in odd numbers in the garden, so I'm just going to place those in just at random. You could put them in a formal pattern, but again I think they just look better at random. You could just drop them in and pop them in where they land. Once you've got your layer of tulips in, is to add 2 inches of compost. Again, it's not exact, but you're not going to go far wrong. If you put 2.5 inches in, it's not going to matter. The tulips like to be planted quite deep anyway. So they're all totally covered up now. So the next thing to do is to plant up the next layer, which is the daffodil. If you check on your back of your bulb packet, it'll tell you how deep to plant things. And obviously you want them so that they don't all so that they shouldn't all be planted at the same depth.
Yeah.
You want them so that you are going to have 2 inches between them, between the layers. So again, just going to put another 9 of these in. And if you've got bulbs on top of one another, don't worry about it. The bulb will find its way through.
Okay.
It's not going to matter if they're exactly on top of one another.
No.
They'll just find their way around each other to the surface. Through. So that's your next layer.
Yeah. Another layer of
So again, another 2 inches of compost. Thereabouts. So you've got a layer now at 6 inches deep and a layer at 4 inches deep. And now we're going to go for a layer 2 inches from the surface. And as a general rule of thumb, most bulbs, not all, but most bulbs, you bury them about twice their own depth. So if you've got a bulb that's 1 inch tall, bury it 2 inches deep.
Right.
But some bulbs need to be planted on the surface, some need to be planted deeper. But as a rule of thumb, that's how it works.
Yeah.
So these are the allium. So these are the allium called Molly. As you can see, everything's got a theme. We've got yellows and oranges. So again, with these, I'm just going to drop these on and then I'm going to stick them in. Again, try and go for an odd number if you can. I know they're only small, but just keep that little rule going. And again, just stick them in at random. Don't need to put any thought into it. Just like that.
Yeah.
Not even thought about that, just chucked them in, really. Just make sure that they're anchored. And then you want your final layer of compost. So 2 inches of compost on top of that. And I just want to fill it sort of an inch from the top, which just helps with watering. And obviously we've got the alliums at 2 inches deep now, so you've now got your 3 layers, one on top of the other, with a layer of compost on top. So the final layer, you could leave it like that if you wished, but it just looks a bit boring through the winter. So what I'm going to do is now plant up with a few pansies. So just going to knock some of these out. Quite nice. It just means that you've got, well, what we're in now, September. So you've got your pansies flowering now, end of September. I think the latest they flower is end of May, beginning of June. So you've got 9 months worth of colour there, hopefully. Again, I've got 9 pansies. So everything's in 9s. Again, just at random, just covering the surface. They will spread. They will thicken out a bit, become a bit more robust.
Ant's got you a brew.
Oh, thanks, Ant. Perfect timing, mate.
Yeah, it's all right. We can.
Anything to get on film.
there.
And then the final thing to do, just to stop the pansies getting wet, we're going to cover that with grit, and that stops any rain or when you have to water them, maybe any of that water sitting on the plant, and that makes it rot. Because obviously they're going to be sat there through the winter, through the autumn months, through the winter, through the spring, our wettest months, and the potential is for them to rot, to get wet. So I'm just going to cover them with grit. Yeah. The thing is, to keep them going is to keep snipping off any dead flowers. Don't let them go to seed. Just keep snipping off the flowers and they'll try and flower again.
Yeah.
Right, I'll just get the grit, George. And
Yeah, no.
the grit I've chosen is the same colour basically as the car park that we're in.
Oh, right.
So just to pick that up, obviously if you want a particular colour, there's all sorts of colour out there. Sandstone, deeper browns. This is a sort of grey with a purpley tinge to it, almost like a slate. So just pick something that matches in with your surroundings and it just looks better. So you want about an inch, half an inch layer, so 2 centimetres, that sort of thing. And just pop that right around the plant. And that, as I say, will keep them dry in the winter. And all I do with that now is just give it a bit of a watering, just for the pansies, not for the bulbs. The bulbs will come up of their own accord anyway. And that's it.
Brilliant.
So pop that outside your front door or in your backyard or wherever, in a nice sunny spot if you can get one. Doesn't have to be sunny, but they'll prefer the sun. They'll be happier in the sun. And that's it. That's your bulb lasagne.